Four-star quarterback Jaden Rashada flipped to UF on Thursday. How long was that in the works?
I would say about several weeks. I first heard about it about a month ago. And, with the way Miami's season was playing out, you kind of wonder were some of these guys going to have a change of heart. Rashada was kind of off and on. You kind of we always heard he might come from the South Carolina game. So that was the one game that was always circled. But as far as the actual flip, we thought it was going to probably happen after maybe that weekend or after he took the visit, where you would think, though, if you're going to make that big a decision, hey, let me go to campus first, then I'll decide after. But he did it a few days before. So we heard about it, and the buzz was real. And that Monday is when really word started to get out. And, now Rashad's in the class. And Marcus Stokes is probably going to stay put too. Florida will definitely take 2 quarterbacks this cycle. And based off Marcus Stokes' reaction, he's pumped to kind of compete with Jaden Rashada. So I think if you're Florida, you got to be extremely pleased because it's a pretty thin quarterback room, especially if Anthony Richardson goes pro. So I think this is the best way it could have played out for Florida. I think they're definitely stoked up in Gainesville.
You think that there was like a cooling off period when he committed to Miami, or do you think Florida stayed on him like from the instant he committed? Because it was pretty shocking. I mean, those two teams were battling it out. So do you think that this interest between Rashada and UF was rekindled recently, or was it just UF never let up?
Yeah, so when he made his commitment and then they got Marcus Stokes shortly thereafter, it kind of died off for a little bit. Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of a break in between as far as conversations go. But I would say midway through the season, towards the beginning though, it started to pick up a little bit. And I think once Miami's season started to go the way it is right now, interest started picking up more on Rashada's side. And then Florida's obviously they stayed on him. They kind of sensed that, hey, this kid still has interest in us. So stay on him. He's an elite quarterback. One of the guys we could definitely add to this quarterback room. So I think overall, there was a little bit of a break, but this has kind of been in the works behind the scenes. Rashada's family they kind of kept this under wraps, especially the last 2 to 4 weeks, and it really picked up steam, though. I would say in the last 2 weeks when conversations were taking place, probably every other day.
Were these business conversations? Because when he committed to Miami, his attorney, Michael Caspino, told On3 at the time that he missed out on millions. He did not pick the highest offer. Quote, he went there because he loves Miami, the coaches, and the opportunity. So that being said, did he flip to UF for a better NIL deal, or was this truly he just saw the direction of the program?
I would say it's a little bit of both. Obviously, it's hard to ignore the whole NIL era right now, especially when it comes to quarterbacks and elite players. And I know, obviously, when it comes to that, he's definitely going to be taken care of. And, it's definitely a very strong appeal. And what I heard, too, I know Anthony Richardson, he has the deal with Gatorade, a lot of Champ Sports, a lot of these are Fanatics, a lot of these big companies. And from what I heard behind the scenes, that's something Rashada definitely took notice of. As far as, you can get those big NIL deals at certain schools and, with LifeWall with Miami. That was a big one. But as far as in Florida, there's a lot of other big names, probably several NIL deals you could get being the quarterback at Florida. And that was another major appeal from what I heard. It was just, obviously he's getting a good NIL opportunities probably at Florida, but it's several of them. And the way Anthony Richardson's NIL opportunities, how everything played out with him, that was a major appeal. But also, too, he said the culture, the way the program's moving under Billy Napier. It's hard to ignore the facts. Florida, I said before the season, I thought they'd go 7-5, kind of in that range. I knew it was going to be a rebuilding year. A lot of skill positions, a lot of key positions were getting replaced. So I think if you're a Florida fan, you couldn't really expect too much this year. It wasn't going to be, it was either they're going to have a really good season and Richardson's going to surpass expectations, or it's going to be kind of like that rebuilding year, kind of a bridge year. So I think with the NIL opportunities, obviously, that he can get at Florida, but also kind of the trajectory of the program, I think it was a good mixture, and that's what really sold Rashada.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it has been, I know you're in the thick of it covering it. I'm kind of, a step back from an overview perspective, but it has been really fun watching Mario and Billy go back and forth, and they both experienced highs and lows. They both had times where they're up. They both had times where, it feels like, oh, we're down and we're never going to be back up. Well, here Florida is now back on the offensive. Is there anyone else that you think that maybe they could go after on Miami's commit list?
Yeah, there's still Cormani McClain, obviously.
They're not done there?
You say it one more time?
They're not done with Cormani?
No, I mean they're still pursuing. I heard last week that they're still pursuing. I mean, obviously they haven't lost complete hope there. They're going to keep pushing till the very end. I think if you're Florida, you have to. You knew where you were sitting with that kid for the long haul. It's almost like Rashada. Learn from the Rashada situation. It was a very close battle. Now he's teamed up with Florida, and then Cremani. That's an in-state kid, and I mean I think everyone in the world thought he was going to go to Florida. So yeah, they're still pushing there. Tommy Kinsler's another one, an offensive lineman out of Ocala they really like. That was kind of an interesting situation this past week we can touch on. But
Well, yeah, tell the folks about it. Tommy was on his way to Gainesville or ready to get in the car, and then what happened?
So he told me, he's like, hey, I'm texting with the kid. He's like, hey, I'm going to go to Florida. And I'm like, hey, safe travels. I know it's a short trip and all that. And he's like, yeah, thank you, and all that. Then he went on Twitter and said, even though I didn't speak to any Florida reporters, I'm still not going to Florida this weekend. I'm like, oh my God, here we go, the whole drama thing. So, I mean, I cover my basis as through text and stuff. What they always say receipts or whatever, but
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go all the way on that. But yeah, I think Miami contacted them and basically kind of said, the rumor is they kind of, I'm not going to say pull a scholarship, but they kind of force them like, hey, if you take this trip, we don't know how this is going to play out on the Miami side. So the kid canceled the visit, and then Francis Maugla, he was kind of rumored to go on the visit. We had him as a surprise potential visitor. We didn't want to leak his name because he was kind of up in the air. Mm-hmm. But then he went on Twitter and had the same message.
Did the same thing.
So I think Miami kind of told those kids like, hey, don't take this trip and whatnot. So those are two guys Florida would love to have in the class. They both took officials already. So if they were to return, they have to take an unofficial. I'm not sure if that's going to happen right now. The one main kid, though, I would definitely say to keep an eye on if you're a Florida fan is Malik Bryant, the linebacker out of Orlando.
Okay.
It was a very, very close battle over the summer. It was kind of back and forth. Alabama was on top, then Florida, and then Miami kind of came in late. And I think that's when Miami started to really pick up momentum with a lot of these kids when they got Malik Bryant, because people thought it was Alabama, Florida, and then all of a sudden they started piling up commits at that time, and that's when the momentum started to shift. But definitely keep an eye on him. I know there's still interest in Florida. Both camps are still talking, and he's one of the guys. I think when you look at those Miami commits, I would probably put him as the most likely flip. If one was to flip to Florida, I think I would probably say him right there for sure.
Okay, but now also the inverse, because, even though it seems like Miami's down at the moment, they've shown signs that they can get off the mat and get some momentum as well. So is there anybody that Miami is still recruiting that's on UF's commit list?
Yeah, I mean, there's Jakeem Jackson. That's a kid that visited not too long ago. He's one kid to keep an eye on. Sharif Denson, I just don't see any of those kids flipping. Okay. Jakeem Jackson, we spoke to him over the weekend. He says he's locked in. And we asked him, how was the Miami game? He went to FSU. He's like, oh, it was terrible. As far as like the score, like what was about to, as far as it being such a one-sided
saying all the right things.
Yeah. And I don't see him. Kentucky was the biggest threat, I believe, with him because his brother's on the track and field team with the Wildcats. So yeah. I think with him shutting it down, he's taking official December 9th. That's his last official. He's locked in. Sharif Denson, I know he's close with Cremani McLean. I know that he's kind of working on him as well. I don't see that happening too. He's a Florida legacy. Seems he just reiterated too. He's locked in. I think honestly, when it comes to Florida, I think a lot of their class stays put. Will Norman might be one to keep an eye on. The one who used to be at IMG, now is up in New Jersey. Syracuse is still kind of keeping an eye on the nearby school. But yeah, I think Florida's class is probably going to stay intact. If they don't, it'll probably be a kind of a surprise out of left field. I think they feel good about it.
Okay. Well, one other big surprise would be four-star offensive tackle Lucas Simmons. He's the Florida State Seminoles' prized offensive line commitment. He was on campus this weekend for an unofficial visit. What's your take on that? Where do you think the Gators stand with Lucas Simmons?
If Simmons was to flip to another school, I believe it would be Florida more than likely. And he was great. We talked like late in the night on Saturday, and love to kind of seeing Rob Sale, Darnell Stapleton again. Love the chemistry, basically the chemistry, the culture in Gainesville. Just said he loved having FaceTime with the coaches again. But he also said, I think the quote was, he kind of basically said, Florida has this and that. They build guys, they develop guys, but so does FSU. And that's where my heart is. And that was like the last thing he said to me. And I think he stays put with FSU for right now. Like all these other kids, he officially visited Florida in the summer. So it's kind of, if they could have gotten on campus in December for an official, then you start thinking, okay, they can kind of have a chance to really flip him. But with Florida using a lot of these officials earlier in the year, it's kind of tough unless not many kids take unofficials in December if you're a highly regarded kid.
Yeah, there's probably a good chance that was Lucas Simmons' last trip to Gainesville. Now,
exactly,
if they do get him on campus in December, like you said, to come in on a Saturday during an official visit weekend on his own dime, then things change.
Yeah, it's not far from home either in Clearwater for where he lives. So I think FSU, you probably feel pretty good coming out of the visit. Florida definitely made a strong impression. The conversations are still taking place, but I think just the vibe from talking to the kid, I think he stays put with FSU.
Okay. One of the last things we got to talk about from the weekend was 5-star cornerback Desmond Ricks out of IMG was on campus, and everybody's been talking about him since his reclassification a couple weeks ago from the 24 to the 23 class. Perception is LSU's the favorite. Desmond Ricks hasn't said this. Desmond Ricks isn't saying a whole lot right now, but the perception is LSU's the favorite. They still have an official visit. They're going to get the last one in December. What are you hearing, though, to where Florida stands coming out of this unofficial visit?
Florida feels pretty good about where they stand. From talking to sources, I think everyone believes LSU's position best. I mean, just even the way with his official visits, LSU gets them right before signing day, and they always say follow the visits. And obviously, Alabama's getting him for the Iron Bowl. Yeah, they're going to get an official as well. I think Florida right now, they could be a number 2 for him. It's kind of tough to tell with Alabama. I mean, they're kind of like the dark horse here. I think with Corey Raymond, and his early playing times available in Gainesville, this past weekend they really rolled out the red carpet. Everyone had Desmond Ricks signs in the crowd. I mean,
I saw that.
He really gets like really good treatment, obviously, at Florida. But you can kind of tell with LSU, he scheduled it that way. With LSU getting the last visit, you can just tell there's a certain different buzz when you talk about LSU, the way he reacts on these visits. But Alabama's Alabama, man. I kind of view them as a dark horse. With them getting for the Iron Bowl and then getting official right before the LSU game, it's going to be interesting. And Florida gets the first official. So with Florida getting the first official, then Alabama and LSU, those schools are going to be more fresh in his mind. I think that might be the game changer, down the stretch for the kid. But Corey Raymond, I mean, that relationship's really strong. He believes he can play early. And another appeal is obviously the IMG kind of pipeline to Florida right now with Kamari Wilson and Najee Harris, who's in the class. He's obviously working on them. All those things are good and everything like that. But I think, with him visiting Florida 3 weeks before signing day and the other schools getting him on campus after that, I think to me that's kind of, in my opinion, sealed the deal for either LSU or Alabama. I just think that's too long of a time to not get on Florida's campus with other two major contenders, at the very top for them.
Well, there's certainly a lot of buzz right now around Desmond Ricks, and I know UF fans feel a little bit more urgency with Cormani McClain going to Miami, so Desmond Ricks kind of steps up in importance to this class. All right, Corey, thanks for checking in with us, man. Always great information from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Josh.
Yep, see ya.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, and remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.